I'm excited to have you all here, and thanks everybody for attending. This is the second for I-10, I guess, in the series How to Start Up. It's a new thing that we're doing at Venture Cafe online, and we're excited to have this today. So I'm gonna turn it over to Melissa, and she can kick it off proper. So thanks everybody, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, no, great to be back again this month for another exciting edition of I-10 Second Thursday at Venture Cafe. Longtime tradition that we've been doing with Venture Cafe since they started, and for probably, I think, four years or so before they were in town. So it's been a great way to spend the second Thursday of the month, and I'm excited about this panel. My name is Melissa Grizzle. I'm the Director of Entrepreneur Development with I-10, and we have four of our entrepreneurs, founders here tonight to talk about a really passionate subject that I love, which is sort of peeking behind the curtain of the entrepreneurial journey. And so I'm excited. I'll let them introduce themselves in just a minute. I wanted to see, I think also from I-10 staff tonight, our business development manager, Kahani Gallagher, and I think Mary Louise is on here somewhere. I've got us on Spotlight, so I can't see.
There she is, she's there.
Yep, and if you guys could, I'm gonna just, Tyler, is she still here? No. Yep. Can you make Connie a co-host so she can watch the chat and help me out a little bit while I just chat and not pay attention? So we're gonna have a real awesome conversation, but I want it to be, pretty conversational here with the panelists. And as you're listening to questions that I have for them and the stories that they're sharing, please feel free to put things in the chat, and we will we'll definitely save room at the end for questions. But if there's things, Connie, that you see pop up that are really pertinent to something we were saying in the moment, please interject, and we can answer things as we go as well.
Sure.
And so without further ado, I want to just have our panelists introduce themselves very briefly, and then we'll definitely dive into their journeys more. If you guys can just introduce yourself and your company, what your company does, if you've got more than one thing going. I know a couple of you have got a couple things going, and so you can self-identify as the founder of whatever you want to talk about tonight. And then just a little bit about what motivated you to do what you're doing, and then we'll dive into a little bit more discussion. Bronwyn, you want to kick us off?
Great. Hi, welcome. So glad to be here tonight. Venture Cafe Online. I'm Bronwyn Morgan, and I am the founder of XeoAir and Airversity, two separate companies. XeoAir is an outsourced AI-based drone services, data analytics, and autonomous operation for infrastructure-based verticals. And Airversity is all about drone pilot training and flight and consulting. I am an FAA drone pilot, FAA safety rep, and drone pro. And my life all day is drones, artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, and working to grow these companies. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to hear more. Raj?
Hi, everyone. My name is Raj. I'm the founder of WayLit. What we do is mostly on the ground, like Bronwyn. We help companies make so that they can hire foreign talent more easily. The talent that comes to the universities here. So if you were to hire somebody who is a foreign national student, we make that process easy for the employers.
Awesome. Cool. And Vicki?
Sorry, had to unmute myself. Hi, I'm Vicki Khan. I'm the CEO of LifeBinder LLC, which involves my work as a nonprofit consultant for grant writing and other such development work, as well as building tools for people with disabilities. And I am currently starting on my second venture, which is called ableroomie.com, where we are trying to support adults with differing abilities in search of compatible roommates so that they can live independently with a roommate, one or more if they choose.
Awesome. Great. Thanks. And Whitney?
Hi, I'm Whitney McClendon Gregory, the founder of Eemerg Roadside Assistance Marketplace. We are redefining the way people use roadside assistance and simplifying the process through our marketplace platform.
Like, you got that, your elevator pitch, like down
Bam.
to the second. Good job.
If you know Q, then you know why I have it down.
Yeah, exactly. So I invited the panel here tonight and really intentionally wanted to showcase people that have been working on their startups for different lengths of time, have done, there are first, that are different stages, there are different industries that are working full-time jobs alongside their startups. I really think it's important that we put a variety of entrepreneurs on the stages, because one of the things I'm passionate about too is that that we talk about this journey in a very transparent way, that it's not just about putting our brave, beautiful, fabulous successes up on the stage, but it's about this is hard sometimes, and this can be a roller coaster. And whether it's the way pop culture shows entrepreneurship, or the way we here in town at a beautiful demo day show entrepreneurship, there's a pretty big roller coaster to get to those points. This isn't just the social network where people will come to us sometimes at I-10 at their very early stages, and they'll be like so pumped up and they're going to build this app and ride off into the sunset with their billions. And so I think whatever we can do as fellow entrepreneurs and as organizations that help with work with early stage entrepreneurs to help people understand what the road ahead might be like, be more prepared for it. Not to say we need to be dream crushers or whatever, but we're just helping people understand that it is a roller coaster. There are support mechanisms. There are the importance of building your tribe and your networks and your ecosystem that can support you. And so when you have a crappy day as an entrepreneur, hey, this happens, and this isn't just me, and it's not, and I'm not awful at this. And, so that's why I almost every time I reach out to an entrepreneur, no matter how amazing I think they are, and I know they are, and people out there see them in their beautiful, wonderful successes, they turn to me and go, really? You really want me to be on a panel? Like, I don't really know that I should be on a panel to talk about what I'm doing. Okay, and so I'm like, yes, your voice is important anywhere across the journey. So anyway, I'm just excited. So I'll stop babbling and let you guys talk more. But one of the things I kick off with is that I'd really like to hear each of you share a little bit about how long you've been working on your startup and how it's different. If you look back at the day you decided, I'm going to do this, I'm going to launch this company, does it look the same? Are you focused in a completely different way, or a different market, or a different, just how's it different from when you first kicked it off? Who wants to start? Anyone that's feeling overly, I really want to share about this, or I'll start picking. All right, Raj.
I can go.
Go first.
Yeah. So I started on this journey in the mid 2018. Left my cushy job that would pay me for not doing much, and decided that I wanted to do a lot more because I was getting a little bored. We started as Connexio, and the idea was to actually solve a problem that we had. I came to the US as an international student, and the journey was hard. Getting here was hard. Not knowing anyone was hard, and not being able to make the right decisions was hard. So I thought, okay, let's try and solve that. But as we started solving it, and this comes down to how we first envisioned it and what it is now, we started hearing a different problem over and over again, which is, now that I'm here, I've spent all this money. I need a job. I need one chance to be able to work for a US employer before I can go back home. And that is the essential problem that we're trying to solve now. So that's my journey, 2.5 years down. Nothing that we had imagined, but we are going where the market leads us.
Yeah, Good advice. Good advice. Bronwyn?
Yeah, that's smart. I started this journey in 2018. I became a drone pilot first because I knew I wasn't a pilot in the past. I've always loved aviation and aerospace, even though that hasn't been my career for the last many years. But I always loved it, and most recently have been an innovation consultant prior to other roles. And so I was seeing a lot of new technology and working with Fortune 500 companies and helping them future-proof. And, you know, working with C-suite executives on like, how will you be relevant? Because you can be disrupted. Your size and your money won't protect you. And when drones came up as a civilian commercial opportunity, I thought, oh my God, this is great. You know, I will never get to take the helm of a a fighter jet. And I may not make it ever on the space shuttle, but I can do this. So, you know, I studied and became certified. And started the company, and we've changed. You know, 2020 was an amazingly interesting year for all the wrong reasons, and but it helped me refine because I was too broad, and so I've narrowed the scope down to very much infrastructure-based verticals because that's important to me. When I think about telecom, utilities, civil infrastructure, energy companies, which would be wind and solar. Climate and environmental observation, they all have very much the same similarities, as well as catastrophe and disaster. And they all kind of overlap. And my goal is to help companies stay up, you know, 24/7. Because as we've witnessed, you know, even though this has not been a situation where we've had a loss of power, a major catastrophe can take us out. And we want to make sure through inspection and mapping with a set currently of drone pilots and now eventually with autonomous services, we're able to help our customers with real-time data so they can make decisions on the fly and be able to constantly monitor all their assets. This is a different world that we're living in. And as we're also moving into smart cities, there are a couple of projects that we've got on the slate where we're helping, and we're about to help different municipalities and organizations, you know, with determining the future and how the aerial space will play a role in that. So I'm not only UAVs, but I'm also UAM, which is our AAM, Advanced Aerial Mobility, which will be flying vehicles. So your Uber will be, you know, a passenger vehicle in the sky, your UPS delivery or Amazon delivery, maybe by a large drone. So I also have another company, I'll talk about that in that space. It's just kind of, I'm not even working on that company. We're getting, you know, crazy calls about that. And I'm just like, we don't do anything. I love this work. It's hard, it's very hard, but you will find over time that you refine and you refine and you refine. And even when you're doing it, you learn something new every day. So, you know, here we are.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you pointed out that, you know, something like COVID and the things that were impacted because of that. Actually, it could be a crisis, and it has been really hard to navigate for a lot of people. But it can also be either allow you to focus and sort of, but it can also then create opportunities. You know, I think we've seen. I'll be really interested to see, you know, when we look back at this time, how we can point origin stories to this time. So that's
No, we even have a COVID package now that it blends geospatial data with drone missions. And that came about because people were just like, do something. And I'm like, okay. So we had to figure out like, what would something be? So.
Yeah, cool. Whitney? How's it different?
So we're different because we've shifted to like more of a customer focus. Initially, because I have a heavy provider background, we were really provider focused and giving providers the amenities that they needed to have and run a successful business.
Your providers would be the people, the tow trucks and things. Okay.
Yes. But we've shifted to more of a customer focus through customer research and discovery. And we've started to build an application that will cater more to simplicity and transparency, communication. And so that's been one of our biggest shifts since we started.
Had you built a product that was more provider focused and you had to then scrap that, or were you able to just build on it or change it?
Some pieces for the most part, but we've had to like add more buttons, add more features, ask more questions, allow photos instead of so much text, allow videos and things that would cater to the customer having a more streamlined process.
And when did you launch like your most current commercial product?
So we launched our product in March. We updated web version product. We are in the process of launching an app now. Apple is really meticulous, so we're figuring it out. But hopefully by the end of February, we will have an app available for people to download.
Cool. And in how many cities, are you in a lot of cities now, or how many cities are you in?
We are Midwest focused. So Arch Grants, getting an Arch Grant, like, and being like St. Louis homegrown, we realized that spreading ourselves too thin wasn't really the best plan of action. And so we've shifted to a Midwest focus. We're focused like on the Midwest, Illinois, Missouri, Oklahoma. So that's where we are right now.
Cool. Vicki?
I just wanted to say, Whitney, that you might want to look at Texas. I don't know if you've seen the weather in Texas the last couple of days, but I'm betting they could use you right now. So this is actually, Able Roomie is sort of my second project. I met Melissa back in 2016 or 17, somewhere in there, when I was part of the WashU incubator program. And I sort of fell into it. I was an accidental entrepreneur where I went for a professional meeting and the organization I was working with didn't really have the capacity to invest the time, but I was working part-time for them. So I was like, I've got this idea. Let's see how I can run with it. And so I developed what I called at the time LifeFinder, and that's what ended up becoming the name of my company. And then discovered, long story short, that you need to look into the legal side of your branding very early on in your process. Please take that and run with it, because I was almost a year and a half into my process and going through the trademarking process with an IP attorney when I discovered that somebody else had literally done it the same time I was doing it. And it was 2 attorneys on the East Coast. And I decided that was a battle I didn't have the money to fight. So I had to change my product name. I had to change my branding. I had to do the whole thing in the middle of something I'd already been developing for a year. So my story is a little bit more bumpy, I think, than a lot of people's. But once we got through the initial sort of scary pieces, I saw a lot of success. Like right away, I was really pleasantly surprised. We won several competitions. We were invited to participate in Startup Connection, which was incredible and overwhelming. And I got to meet a lot of people. But all of that attention can be a little overwhelming. And so it takes a little time to sort of discern who is really somebody that is wanting to give you good advice versus who's somebody who's just kind of trying to feel out the scene or maybe sell you a workshop, because that happens a lot too. Not that that's a bad thing, because everybody's got their hustle and I'm down for it. But because of all of the process that we went through, I feel like I got stuck on what I wanted to do. And I just knew that it was right because I had done all of my research. I had gathered everything I needed to gather. I'm a grant writer by trade, so I ended up pouring 140 hours into writing what I thought was a really amazing federal grant that would have been a 3-year startup sort of process for us. I had a nonprofit partner, I had a university partner, and we got all the way to the final round, and I found out 2 weeks before my birthday in 2019 that we didn't get the grant. And so at that point, like my whole team just went, we were just deflated. I had been working full time during those 2 years, because once that part-time thing went away, everything became full-time. So I was working a job, taking care of my family, trying to run the business and keep that up, and it was a lot. So I decided in fall of 2019 that I was going to take a year off. Little did I know it would be a really good year for me to do that. I didn't take the year off work. I took the year off entrepreneurship. So it was actually just October when I had my birthday that I reached out to Melissa and said, hey, I think I'm ready to do this again. But that whole project I did before isn't wasted. It's actually a sub part of the project I'm starting now. So, you know, realizing that just because it wasn't a success in the way that I envisioned didn't mean that it wasn't a useful process to go through, because I've met so many people, learned so much, made so many good connections. But also it taught me to take those things that were good about it and how can I fit those into this new idea, to this different idea that's still going to do what I'm trying to do. And as a social entrepreneur, it's a slightly different wheelhouse than standard entrepreneurship, but I'll hush because I can just talk forever, as Melissa knows.
No, I appreciate your, and you've already kind of touched on what my next question, but I'll open it up to everybody else. You know, if you can, I think, you know, if you can point to something, and anyone can take this first, that you would have done differently, if you'd have known what you know now back then, you know, what would probably be something you point to that you're like, no, I would have done that differently.
I can take this one. Initially, when we started Eemerg, I wanted everybody to know about it, and I wanted to do all of these marketing things. And the very first thing I did was went and bought commercial space, like television commercials. And it took for me to waste about $35,000 before I realized if people are watching TV, they're not in their cars. So that was like one of the biggest boo-boos I have experienced so far. It was a pretty hard pill to swallow. I don't know what I was thinking. Like I guess I was just excited. But it was just like, oh man, what a waste. And so now I'm like really frugal friend when it comes to like buying and, you know, doing certain things and making certain commitments. And I like make sure you read the contracts and like read what you locked into and just make better decisions all the way around. But that was my like aha, like, oh, that was so stupid.
But it's also, you know, in evidence that we see, you know, a lot. Obviously, you have to have a passion for what you're doing because it is hard, and you've got to have something that keeps you moving forward. But sometimes that can be blinding, you know, or you can just be, you know, in tunnel vision, and so that's why I think you can, you know, surrounding yourself with people that are going to help you sort of channel that passion in the right way, and
right, you know, like not pick the bad ones. But yeah, it was a learning experience. Needless to say, I don't buy any more commercials, and we found other ways to focus and gain customer retention and gain customer acquisition. So that's been my thing.
Bronwyn?
Yeah, I'm big on Whitney.
Your face.
Yeah, I didn't buy 35,000 in advertising, but in media, but I can appreciate the energy, and I'm all about free media and unpaid media, and I milk it as much as I can, and a lot through partner relationships, you know, and speaking a lot. And you'd be surprised who you meet. I've gotten literally 2 calls today from people who I met in the last couple of days, and some people I've never even met from outside of the country. And they just find you because, you know, you're just putting content out there, and they're just like, hey, we need you. And I'm like, I'm here. What I would have done first out of the gates is I would have started with government first. You know, our customer targets are government and private sector. I would have started with government first. And now I'm, you know, that we're doing that. I have a team working on private sector. And the money, sources of money, you know, whether you're doing a SBIR, SBI or STTR, or whether you're seeking a government contract, you know, local, state, federal, it's just, and it's non-dilutive money. So you don't have to worry about giving up any equity. And it's a great way to get your company off the ground. No pun intended. And if I would have, and I was kind of doing some of that, and like we have, you know, done some government stuff, you know, just a little bit, but I really would have focused a much bigger part of my energy on that, because the revenue, you know, you start to grow. You've got a great brand, and we've got some great brand, you know, names, but that's a great brand to have behind you. And once you're in the system, you kind of keep getting calls and calls, and it gets bigger and bigger, and you can go from agency to agency, and it just becomes a big pot. And unless you're a defense contractor or just only for government projects, and there are companies that do that, it's hard for a tech startup. You need to diversify, because it's hard to grow if you're only doing government work to like Series A and B, because you're kind of locked into this one customer. But it's a great place to start, and there's nothing wrong with having government on your, you know, in your roster at all. You know, rarely does the money dry up, sometimes, but the innovation is, you know, consistently required. So that's what I would have done differently.
Have you seen any, you know, any growth in opportunities with government, given, you know, the CARES Act or some of the other things that might have, you know, be coming, and maybe even still coming if we, you know, get this a second relief package?
Yeah, I think if you qualify for that, you know, great. Sometimes startups, you know, we're too little. You don't have enough to qualify for certain things. Your little payroll is too small, or you got people not getting money, you know, getting paid yet.
You have people on the startup side trying to pushing the policy people on that, going, hello,
yeah, I'm just,
you really
like,
want to help small business, just quit putting these restrictions on your grant.
Yeah. And then I even like some of there's tons of grants out there, not just government grants, but grants period. And some of them recently have been like, hey, you know, we'll give you $10,000, but you have to at least be doing $150,000 a year or something. I'm just like, well, why would they need this money? But and some people are well intended, but they don't understand how small business and startups work. But there's still loads of government contracts out there. I mean, I was just on with one of the state in the Southeast, and I'm on a list that gets government contract list for my space. And I called down there. I was like, hey, I'm not registered with your state. The lady walked me through it. We did it in 3 minutes, and she was like, go bid. And so federal and state, I mean, there's just tons of stuff out there. All the agencies, pretty much every one of them, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, Department of the Interior, USDA, NOAA, NASA, they all have SBIRs, and that's money that can be utilized. I don't want to turn this into a whole SBIR thing, Melissa, but money that can be utilized if you're accepted up front to help you build your product out. You don't even have to be fully baked. Is it innovative? Is it new? Is it what they need? And every agency has different needs, of course. And then there's the STTR, where if you partner with a university who does part of the research with you, you still get, this pot of money. And then you can go on to the next level and you get, closer to $1 million. So yep. It's a great tool.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of resources for people that want to kind of start to get their head around that. We can help you help companies sort of navigate that. BioGenerator has a great program that they offer a lot of support for people in life sciences that are going after early SBIR grants. And we can connect you to the PTACs, which help you with all the registration stuff. But also any agency that offers, a lot of them are offering what's called Phase 0, which is, and we as Missouri-based startups qualify for that sort of assistance in helping prepare because we're an underrepresented state. They want to try to up the number of SBIRs, so there's often some free services available with that. So thank you for bringing that up. I've lost track of who's talking about what they would have done differently. Raj, did you share? I don't think you shared yet.
Not yet. What I would do differently is not depend on technology as much. I think technology has become too inexpensive. So when we start depending on technology, we start thinking about solutions. I'd rather go and work on the problem first. And that's very important because what we do is we think about technology and we say, all right, well, with this technology, I can build a solution. And then we try and go back and fit that into a problem. To give you an example, the first company that I started in 2018, we started with a mobile app, right? Because I thought, oh, that's the thing that's required. My research said, there's nothing in the market like that. But there's a reason why there's nothing in the market like that, right? And that's what you got to figure out. Just because there's something doesn't exist in the market does not really mean that you'll build it and people will flood to you. The second thing I do want to say is build something for people close to you. Don't go out and build for people who you can't actually pick up the phone and talk with. I think that is super important. If you can't talk to your customers, you can't get them on a phone with you. For our example, it was, you know, students were sitting halfway across the world from us, and just getting them was really hard to get feedback. So you need constant feedback as you're building your product. So when you start building product, I think it is super, super important that you don't talk to investors, you don't talk to anybody else, but just your customers, right? Just ask them what they're looking for. What is the problem that they want solved? And why do they want that problem solved? And it is so hard. It is so hard to actually do that. It's easy to say that focus on the problem, but the way we are wired, we are always focused on the solution because we feel that that's the end to that problem. But we are not focusing on the right thing. And that's been the case with a lot of companies. So those are two things that I would say.
Yeah, no, and that's a really good point. And one thing that, you know, we're seeing over and over and over again, and was really the reason why we've launched our newest program, the Eureka experience that we launched with the first component in the fall with ideation. And that was all about drilling into the people's head, that, you know, the participants' head. You gotta love that problem more than the solution. You gotta stop being, having what's called innovator's bias take over everything that you're working on, especially at the idea early stage. And talk to people who you think have the problem you're trying to solve and figure out what, through the conversations, what the solution should be. Because the ultimate thing is your customers don't care about your solution, they care about their problem. So, so stop being so solution centric in those conversations. So I'm glad to hear you say that. And we will continue to offer ideation and validation, one after the other going forward. We're getting ready to launch validation with the 10 startups that were selected for that here next week. But then we'll be offering ideation again later in the spring. So keep an eye out if you're at that early stage and want some help thinking that way, thinking in really lean. I'm not going to build a provider-focused product. I'm going to talk to people and realize the market is bigger if I'm a consumer-focused, right, Whitney? So just, thinking about that. Anything, Vicki, that you'd want to add? I know you talked about what you would have done differently a little bit. That's what made me ask this question, but.
Well, what Bronwyn was saying brought something to mind, and that's because I've been a grant writer for so many years, I don't advertise it anymore. People just refer folks to me. It happens after a while in any field that you're in, once you do some things right, so I would get these phone calls from people. I have this great idea. I want to start this nonprofit. All I need is the money. All I need is the money. And you hear the same thing in entrepreneurship all the time. I've got this great idea and everybody I've talked to about it loves it. And all I need is the money. Well, the fact of the matter is that when you write a grant, there's more to it than just getting your 501c3 and having a great idea. Like, you literally have to have a whole plan for infrastructure. If you're going to do a workforce development program, where are you hosting it? How are you going to safely social distance? Do you have the equipment? Do you have access to the software? How are you tracking everything? Like, these are things you have to know in advance of writing that grant. It's not a matter of just finding a good grant writer and saying, here's my idea, write me the grant. Like, there's a lot of work that you still have to do before that grant writer can do that. And so I feel like the entrepreneurship journey and in looking at it in reflection is very much the same thing. Like, everybody has a good cause. Everybody has a good idea. And then who do you need to help you make it run? But if you got to have that strong foundation so you can answer those questions, because that's the most important part. If you've ever sat with a mentor and they look at you and start asking you questions that you thought you knew how to answer, and then they tweak it a little and you go, crap, I don't know how to answer this. But you've spent so long crafting the right answers to give that you're afraid to say, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I didn't think about that, because we don't want to feel like we haven't considered something about our customers, right? And working in social entrepreneurship, specifically, I feel like it's a slightly different beast in that, you know, for me, the things that I've done have been because I have a 25-year-old son with autism. And so I've been through the whole gamut of that while being a working mom and having been a single mom for a bunch of that time. And so I know I talk every day with other moms that are going through this stuff. So I do hear their pain points. And so that made me think, oh, I'm already an expert in knowing how to create this solution, like Raj was saying, right? I already know what the solution is because I'm one of the people that the problem is for. So that part of it is a good thing, but you also have to reach beyond that. And so one of the things that I found, I'm a research nerd because I'm a grant writer. So I reached out to a friend of mine who's on my advisory team, who's a professor at George Mason University. And I said, I'm stressing out about how to do all these surveys so I can get this information, or having enough time to make phone calls in the day. And I feel like this information has to be out there somewhere. And she said, well, why don't you take data and research that's already been done and compare it with the data that you've already collected and see if there are any crossovers? Because we can look at, you know, the dates that those pieces of research were done, and you can see, has anything changed during that time? You know, 2020 is contributing to innovation in a huge way right now, because we've all had to think about what would we do if, and we've had to adapt to it. Some of those things have been more successful than others. My daughter hates virtual school, absolutely despises it, you know, and she was a straight A student before. So, you know, trying to figure out the right way to do it. And also understanding, I think that when you work in a human service, or where it's important to connect with someone person to person, you don't just need to craft your message for the person that will be using your product. You also need to craft different messaging for the people that know and love them. Because when somebody comes to you and says, oh my gosh, you know, I have my cousin in India really wants to come to the States, Raj, and there's this great job waiting for them, but it's so complex, and especially with COVID, and what do we do, right? Well, the only reason that they've sent that person to you is because they read about you in an article, or they talked to somebody else, or, you know, they saw a little blip on a show on TV in the middle of the afternoon. So making sure that you figure out ways to explain the pain points to people for whom those pain points aren't personal, I think has been one of the most difficult challenges that I've faced. Because if you don't live with it every day, how do you explain it to somebody in a way that they can understand and have compassion for?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you see that even it's similar. It's a little less of a personal thing, but when we talk to entrepreneurs who keep talking about their customers and they're really talking about the users of their products, and they don't know how to communicate to the people who write the checks, which those are their customers. And there's often a disconnect, you know, there's, you know, maybe you're solving a problem for nurses, but nurses don't write hospital system technology adoption checks. So how to, work on the different messaging. You've got to have both sides agree that that this is the problem we're solving, and there's an ROI for that. I'd love to hear each of you and just a reminder to folks, if you have questions, to throw them into the chat, and we'll tackle them in just a second. But I'd love to hear from each of you talking a little bit about sort of the size of your team, you know, and if you have a team, or if you're a solo gig, or, you know, and when did you grow a team, and just sort of a little bit about the size of your company, both from a team perspective, and maybe if you want to talk about how that might be tied into your customer traction or your revenue traction. When do you add team members? When did you decide this is a real thing? We better get some people to help us with this. Anyone want to take that first? Whitney, I know you have
Sure.
at least a couple people with you.
I have a small team. We have a team of 6, and it's growing. We're looking for more team members now, but we started off with 2, went to 4. Over the past 6 months, we've hired 2 additional people. A lot of them are market marketing focused. We have one developer. We, of course, have an accountant because we are bootstrapping currently, so we need to know where every cent goes. And we have a social media marketer, someone who focuses specifically on SEO, and or both organic and paid. So that's how my team is structured currently.
Cool. Are those are they full time or some part time?
2 full-time, 4 part-time.
4 part-time. Cool. Bronwyn?
I have a team of 6. We have 2 business development VPs focused on the private sector side of things and service. They're very experienced. They serve as great consultants for me, especially in some of the international things that we're exploring. I have a mission commander, UAS operations lead, who is also a drone pilot, but I'm so busy on the computer and on the phone all the day. She's my day-to-day expert because she's out in the field all the time and flies everything. And then I have my 2 GIS, geospatial experts who are here to help us engineer the data aspects of geospatial as we grow. And then I have a litany of drone pilots in our network that we're looking to grow as we speak. And then I have my dev guy. So that's our team.
Cool. Raj?
Yeah, we have a team of 6 people too. I don't know how, but everyone has a team of 6 people, seems like. So it's me and my co-founder, and can't stress how important it is to actually have a co-founder with you, just to share that balance. And then we have a team of engineers. We are building a lot of solutions just to figure out, which one's creating the most value. And I think that's what a lot of companies at an early stage do. We're a year into our existence, and I did not bring anybody on in terms of engineering until we were 6 months in, and we had a few customers. And the first few customers that we brought on, and they're foreign national employees that we were actually taking through the process, I was doing the support. I was tracking their cases on Trello until we really figured out where the problems were. So we talked to the people, talked to the managers to figure out where the problem was and how to keep all the stakeholders in one place. And those are the solutions we started building. And that's how our team started to get structured.
Cool. All right. Vicki?
I do not have a team of 6.
I told you there's diversity in this panel.
No, but my dearest darling love, my partner in life, has definitely been my strongest supporter. He's also a process improvement, Lean Six Sigma businessy kind of guy, and my brain doesn't work like that. So that for me, is that sort of nice little Lego fit, because when I get into my creative brain, I always joke around that I think of everything as the giant big picture. And then I go, well, what do I need to do before that and before that and before that? And he goes, I got all these little parts. What do I need to do in order to turn them into this, So we sort of come at each other that way. But in the early days, that was a bit of a challenge because, sometimes working with your partner is not always the best thing. We had to learn how to communicate differently because I don't communicate with my fellow employees the same way I communicate with the person I'm married to. So there's that. Aside from that, I have been blessed to have a wonderful advisory panel of people who absolutely refuse to take money from me until I could get to a point where I could afford to actually pay them something and not take anything for myself, which has been very kind. So I basically have used all the relationships that I have collected around myself over the years of working with my son and getting him through all the red tape of the social service system in Missouri, including all of the nonprofit orgs that I have volunteered with and talked with and had many, many conversations with the staff that work there. Please give to your local nonprofit organizations. They're really doing good stuff and there's never enough money. So those are really the folks that ended up taking me forward. The people that ended up being key for me are a friend of mine. I sort of dragged him in just to ask him questions because he is a banker kind of guy, and he had served on some entrepreneurship panels before. And after we'd been talking for about 3 or 4 months, he was like, "So sounds like you need an interim CFO." And I was like, "I can't pay you anything." And he's like, "It's all right." And I was like, I dragged you in, you know? So sometimes people will just do things out of the goodness of their heart because they really believe in what you're doing, you know? And that's an important piece to remember too. And it doesn't mean, like, you know, have conversations with those people. Don't make promises you can't keep. Don't tell people, "Well, I'll pay you when I get the money to," and have them sort of holding out hope if you don't know that you're going to have money to pay them, you know, like, let them know, "I appreciate everything you're doing. I will give you as much credit. You can throw it on a resume. I'll write you a letter of reference, like anything I can do to, you know, offer you some value for your time, I'm happy to do." And I look forward to having 6 employees. It'll happen. I've given myself a year on this particular project to get some good solid traction. And if not, then I'll move on to the next thing. The first one was heartbreaking. After that, after I like healed from the heartbreak, I just realized that I needed to stop taking failure or what I perceived to be failure as the end of what I should do, that all of my ideas are then stupid and I shouldn't do any of it. Like, that's the last thing you should do, I promise. If you find out that somebody else is doing something and they're getting the bucks because they're doing it better than you are, you should be impressed with that. And you should go and talk with them and say, "Hey, I tried to do this and I couldn't do that, but I have these ideas and maybe I can work together with you and bring something about what I'm doing to your team." You know, there may be room for that. So I sort of feel like I'm the little sister over here with all of these very impressive entrepreneurs on this panel. But you know,
yeah,
I feel like it's important to recognize that just because you don't have a big pile of money sitting in the bank, and believe me, when I got that $20,000 check through Missouri Foundation for Health to get started on my project, I was like out of my mind. Like, and I've written $1 million grants for organizations, and those are wonderful, but earning it for something that I made was just like, it was amazing. And, you know, but don't get lost in that one big win. There's still lots of work to do, you know, yeah. And you got to maximize those resources as much as possible. And I will tell you that, you know, a chunk of that money went to pay for attorneys. It's worth it. It's never not worth it to talk to an intellectual property attorney. I'm just going to say that. If you want to know who mine was, I loved him to bits. You can message me and I'll tell you. But that's really one of the biggest things I would say. And of course, I have a CPA who happens to be my sister-in-law, which makes, you know, communication pretty easy. But it's good to have somebody that knows how to handle business taxes, especially when you have your personal life sort of intermixed in it in the early stages of your organization.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And you know what, Melissa, I don't want to, go on too long, but Vicki brought up a point. You know, like my sales folks are commission based, so there is no upfront salary for them. And I think people will come work for you often when you have a great idea, if they believe in you and they see how hard you're working and that you are, pushing uphill. So don't feel like, oh my God, how am I going to get all this money to pay for all these people? Compensation has to come in, and also around equity. Like people say, well, hey, I'll give you equity if you come work for me. Be very careful about that. You don't give up equity without a really, really, really good reason. Investors or somebody who's going to really put in sweat equity with you over time, but that also has to be fractional equity that you dole out based on performance. And then when you start making money, it's like, okay, now, your salary kicks in and then they've got some equity and that keeps people engaged. But there's a lot of detail that no one really gets to tell you. You're so hungry, you need so much help. Be mindful of that.
Yeah, I read in the chat question just about trying to figure out where a co-founder would fit in. He said, I have someone working on the tech side at a level not really co-founder level that he's just paying, but this is Alex was asking. He says, I have industry knowledge, I have connections, and doing the research in the communities about the products. And so I don't even know what a co-founder would add, or what I should, what would be co-founder worth taking a big chunk, well, or not, to your point, Bronwyn, maybe, what you would need to see in that relationship to make it worth it, I think. Do you guys have thoughts on that, or where?
I don't have a co-founder. I have an only child. I am an only child syndrome. I have a co-founder on one of my other companies because he has skills that I don't. We're both pilots. We're different types of pilots. I'm open to one, but it has to be the right marriage. Just, Vicki talked about her husband. That's a different level of relationship, but
Whitney keeps smiling real big too.
And I'll let Raj and Whitney speak to this, but you got to make sure that you guys are cool, and you got to have all your documentation up front, just like with a prenup, because when things don't work out, and oftentimes they don't, you got to be able to part equitably, but that stuff needs to be legally laid out, because this is emotional and it's hard. And it also, if you're a woman and or a minority, if your partner isn't, you may want to take the higher percentage of equity in the company so that you can, be considered for those kinds of contracts and opportunities. But I can go on with this part forever, but let me turn it over to Dee.
Whitney, I know, are we going to lose you, Techstar queen, to a Techstars event here any minute? I want to make sure.
Those were wrapped up earlier.
Okay, all right. I thought maybe you had to head out again. But
no, I work with my husband. He is not a co-founder of Eemerg. He has been here since day one. We made those lines very clear. We have been married for over a decade. I own Eemerg, he works for Eemerg. There is a clear difference. So I say that to say, I agree with Bronwyn in saying, make sure those lines are drawn. It's no argument. We leave the work in the office and we still come home every day with no problems. We work very well together, but I don't call him a co-founder, but he is my tech person. He has developed all the applications for Eemerg, from mobile to web app, and we work very well together. It flows very well together, and you don't always need a co-founder. It's nice to have someone in that space to bounce ideas off of, and Alex, if that tech person fits the bill, so be it. But just naming people and giving people unnecessary titles can be another big problem in businesses. Like, I'm not ready for a CMO or a CFO or a COO. I'm not there yet with 6 employees. I have me, a one-person board in this corporation, and that's all I need currently. We expect to grow and expand and, do great things, but you have to realize where you are in your business and make the decisions that are right for you in that moment. Mm-hmm. And as you grow, your team will grow and you'll ebb and flow into new directions, but make the decisions that you think are best for you in that moment, and realize that mistakes will be made, but you can bounce back.
Yeah. Raj, there's a question for you specifically in the chat. It says, just checked out WayLit's site. Great stuff. I've been on F1, J1s, OPT, CPT. What made you choose the visas you're focused on, considering there are so many? Were some more lucrative than others to focus on, or were some more complex than others?
Wow, that's a long question. Hold on. So let me first answer something that I want to say about co-founder, right? So my recommendation for a co-founder is you should look for ethics first before you start looking for what tactical skills they bring onto the table. Ethics is so important. I think Bronwyn said the same thing, and so did Whitney. Problems are going to happen, and this is a very, very tough journey that you and your co-founder are going to go through. This is going to rip you apart, put you back together. You will blame each other for stuff that doesn't go right. But by the next morning, you should still be focused back on finishing the work that you picked up. And that is important. I'm super lucky that I actually found the right co-founder, but I've been unlucky with actually stumbling upon the wrong people. And I think Brown said the right thing. We in the moment start to feel that, okay, we need to achieve something, and this is the best person to make that happen for us. But ethics is such a big thing, and I think work ethics, and then how you deal with the problem and how do they deal with the problem comes along. So recommendation would be start working together with no commitments at all. work for 3 to 6 months, see how that goes, and then put things on paper. If you do need to put things on paper, do have a clause that it's a six month sort of a trial, and then we'll figure it out. You know, and you just need the right person to work with you. And that's very important. If the person does not bring the right credentials, but has the right ethics, then you can still work it out, because this is going to be a long journey. You're in this for 10 to 15 years. And it always helps to actually have somebody, even if an employee, who is your right arm, and you can actually put them in front of people and still keep on going and figuring things out.
I think it's definitely, I'll let you, just on the co-founder thing, it's definitely more important to have vision, shared vision, complementary skills, agreement on the culture you want to create in your company, those sorts of things, rather than, and just the acceptance that you're both going to wear a ton of hats in this. So the tactical skills or the, you know, the specific expertise is not nearly as important, I think, as those other, you know, big picture things. We've got just a couple minutes. Can you answer the visa question quickly, Raj, or is that a more like reach out to me?
No, I can answer it. So we started focusing on the visas that we're doing, which is employment-based visas, because that's my personal experience. I've gone through that experience myself. I know the community that actually goes through that. One is not more lucrative. Well, there are lucrative visas, which are investor visas. I don't have personal experience. I cannot actually go and talk to anybody who can invest $5-10 million in the United States, because I just don't know how that life works. So I'm solving the problem that I had, right? That I can actually talk to somebody who is a foreign national employee with a company and say, I know how you feel. I know that USCIS is taking its time, but I know I've gone through that, right? So that is our only reason why we actually started to focus on employment-based visas. Hopefully that helps you helps answer the question.
Yeah, no, that's, well, I think it also just reinforces too, Raj, you know, what you said earlier about really knowing your customer, having those early conversations with potential customers about problem discovery, not just customer discovery, but problem discovery, and then going away and taking those key learnings and developing the solutions that your customers that are going to be tailored to their problems. But if panelists can throw into the chat too, like how people can reach you if you want to, you know, share whether it's your Twitter handle or your website or whatever you want to share with folks if they have further specific questions. I just want to, because we're closing in on 5, I want to just thank all of you for sharing your journeys, and I think being committed to being transparent and open in conversations when you're, you know, just walking around. In your daily lives, I see you guys do that, just my interactions with you, but also just taking advantage of being on stages such as this to just talk about it and be real about it. I think that's going to help us all. Everyone that, you know, that this is a tough but exciting and rewarding thing to be doing, and never think that we're like, what you're seeing up on a stage sometimes is, you know, just the Instagram version of entrepreneurship and not the really hard stuff.
If I could just wrap up with one little thing, it seems like a little thing, but it's really important, I think, for whatever stage you're at, to remember that it's okay to say no to people, that you don't have to accept every LinkedIn request. You don't have to be on every panel. You don't have to go to every workshop. It's okay to say no. It is not required for you to deplete yourself of energy at the expense of your own sanity so that you can achieve some hustle till you die kind of success. It's important to find that balance. If you start feeling overwhelmed, take a day off. It's really okay, especially if you're a team leader and you don't have a co-founder who can pick up those reins, because if your team sees you losing your stuff, they don't have the foundation of you to lean upon. So just remember to make time for yourself and make space for yourself. Everybody needs a day off, and it's okay to give your people the day off, and it's okay to give yourself the day off.
Great way to end. No, that's a very good reminder, because we can just applaud the hustle too much in this area and not take care of ourselves. So, but thank you so much to our panelists, Whitney, Bronwyn, Raj, Vicki. I really appreciate everything that you had to share, and thank you everybody for joining us. And come back in March.